I'm beginning to feel sorry for Triss and Yen.
Triss and Yen.
Oh, very
dick.
well. Let's go.
You dick. And another thing too, Banana Doggo, which I'm not gonna open this up to chat. I don't want to get into a big discussion about this, but it's my stream, so I'm gonna fucking say what I want to say. Very much now, there have been what I consider a problem in mainstream media with comic books and video games and things like that. If you have a straight character in a movie and he's a womanizer, it's fine, right? But once you introduce the idea of choice, or if it's a comic book or something like that, like whether it's, and I'm not saying any of these people are bad, but you know, whether it's a feminist agenda, whether it's a homosexual agenda, like whatever agenda it is, whatever, if it's fucking the NRA, it doesn't matter, right? Everybody demands that because it's a game and because you have choice, their choice in the world needs to be represented in the video game. It's like, I want to be careful how I say this. It's up to the writers and the producers of the video game to put the content they want in the video game for the reasons they want to do it, because it is art. Now, not all games are art, but they can very much be. This game, hands down, art. That Hatred game, you know, whatever, you know. But just because somebody doesn't include something that people think they should doesn't mean we should automatically jump their shit for it. And I'm getting really tired of, and I'm not saying because of you, I'm just kind of, this has been brewing in me for a while in general. I'm getting tired of people pushing their agendas. This character can't romance this type of person in this video game, and you're not catering to my agenda. It's up to the creators of the game to put what the game, like, in what they want. You don't have people doing that same thing about books. Now, we're kind of getting that a little bit but it's more about TV now. Like, people are starting to get a little bit uncomfortable with the amount of sexual assault and or just sex related topics in general that's happening in Game of Thrones, which, no spoilers, you know. And in some way, there's a real discussion that needs to happen about that. When is too much? What's the appropriate way for those things to be portrayed? Because, like, there was like a congresswoman that was like, somebody got raped in Game of Thrones last night, I'm gonna stop watching this series. And it's like, that's great, because the only way to deal with sexual assault is to not talk about it. Like, you're fucking stupid. And it's the same, like, that principle carries on in games and in literature and movies and things, or at least it should carry on in games and comic books, which have been targets recently. It's always good to see forward thought and to see options in games and to see people not pushing an agenda, but if a character would be straight or gay or bi, or if they would, you know, or something bad happens to them, murder, sexual assault, like those, like all those really hard to deal with real life topics that we just kind of make us hate other people, you know, like shut the fuck up. Like, when people from the outside start pushing their own agendas in what is basically art, you know? Like, nobody goes to an art gallery and says, this painting's bad because it doesn't fit my agenda, whatever my agenda is, you know? But they do that with games, and they do that with comic books. And it's really starting to frost me, because there's very, very, very rarely a line crossed where, I mean, people did it with this game. There's too many white men, and everybody's white in this game, and blah blah blah. Like, no, seriously, there were groups of people that the show remain nameless because I don't give a fuck about them. I really don't. They're stupid and ignorant. But they were like, the entire demographic of this Witcher game, it's a AAA title, and all of them are white, and they're mostly men, and they treat the women like shit, and blah blah blah. You know, like, art is supposed to be criticizing of society and raise questions. That's true, but when people inject their own agendas into art, that's the flip side, right? Art is supposed to be appreciated, not depreciated. No, not depreciated, but, you know. That's just them being stupid, because they're like minorities aren't represented in the Witcher game. And you know what? Most of the minorities in the region that the world of that this game comes from are what you would consider white, Slavic and Germanic, and people that are just, you know. But there's huge cultural differences in this game. If you look in this game, there's huge cultural differences between Nilfgaardians and the northern races and all this stuff. And just because they didn't throw a black guy like forefront and center in the game, you're gonna decry it for that? Really? Are people that nearsighted that they just all they see is a light skin color and they automatically turn into like some weird sort of like reverse racist because they want to prove that they're not racist so that we need to include everybody? No. Like, you don't need to include everybody. And exclusion is what makes things different. If you included everybody and everything, all the games... Absolutely, Starry. Absolutely. I mean, I'm married, but yeah, hands down. No questions asked. I wouldn't even care, you know? But like, exclusion, right? What something doesn't bring to the table characterizes it as much or more as what it does bring to the table. And that's where we get into this whole thing, where Escape Death is kind of getting to what I was hinting at, is that people don't treat video games like their art. Truthfully, it was a simple question. It was a simple question. I have no problem answering it. But yeah, people don't treat games, which in many cases, are better written than movies and books, right? Draenora's not here, but I'm going to throw Sharknado under the bus. What's better, The Witcher or Sharknado? There's not enough great white sharks in Sharknado, and there's too many tiger sharks, and our demographic isn't well represented. And there's not gay sharks, and there's not trans sharks, and there's not NRA rifle-wielding Republican sharks, and there's not Democratic sharks, and there's not Sub-Saharan African sharks, and there's not Australian sharks, and there's not, like... It just gets mind-numbing after a while. It really does get mind-numbing. And yeah, and you guys, I mean, like, you're all right to ask Starry that question. Does it matter? Like, maybe that question could have been phrased better. And maybe let's put it back on me. That was a legitimate question from Starry, right? Maybe I should have answered differently. Instead of saying yes, I should have said, I would date anybody regardless of their skin color if I found them attractive. Whether it be physically, emotionally, mentally, you know, spiritually, like whatever, right? If I am attracted to somebody, regardless of how they look, right? It's like saying, would you date somebody with green eyes? Does it really matter that much? No. Now, everybody has their preferences. Like, Kegman loves redheads. Would I date a redhead? Sure. Is my preference redheads? No, I like blondes. Or Yennefer. I would date Yennefer. But it's those types of questions that I think like really lend us to not thinking of the big picture. And I guess I'm challenging you guys as viewers. I'm challenging you guys as viewers to view video games as art and to take people to task in a loving way, because there's we're not going to be able to change them by arguing with them, because that's what they want to do, is argue. When people get on your favorite game, or they get on your favorite book or your movie or whatever, they make fun of comic books, and they say that the Batgirl cover is not okay because she looks like she was just raped by the Joker and stuff like that, and we need to hide this because we don't want to talk about it, it's just all bad. Like, realize that that's very nearsighted, and that especially things that are categorized as art need to be viewed through a very special lens. What is the person who created it trying to communicate to me? Not what agenda, or not what presupposition, or not what confirmation bias am I looking for to push into the game. Food for thought. Food for thought.